Yes, numbskull, I'm broadcasting.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Baldini, and with us today, again, is the commentator of Common Sense, taking us through the cycle of mayhem. We are going to hear the common sense of A.J. Hayes. Ladies and gentlemen, he is once again the man, the myth, the legend. Sir, how you doing this week?
Yeah, I wouldn't go all them titles, man. I don't know about that, but
you underestimate yourself.
I always say, you just live to learn, and we use that term a lot here on a cycle of mayhem. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome is the definition of insanity. So I think you get to a certain age, you realize don't do the same thing over and over again, and you might get a better result. So I think maybe that's kind of a longer title, but it's less official and I think more appropriate. But welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Cycle of Mayhem in plain sight. Don't ever forget that part of the name. Yes. And we tune in with you every Wednesday night. And, it's this show right here is where we kind of steer you in the direction to make your own eyes, your own decisions, to see what's really going on in plain sight as we remove the smoke and mirrors and lift up the tarp and show you what's under it. Again, a lot of things are going on right in front of our eyes, and you're trying to make decisions on who you want to lead your neighborhood, your country, and you get confused and tied up with all the tug of war going on in the questionable media. Maybe that's a new one, Jim, questionable media.
Good name.
I don't want to plagiarize and call it the fake news, but either way, I think people are at the point now where their common sense is kicking in, and that's the big thing that we do. We like to tap your common sense, and really when you look at it and get the pointed in the right direction, it pretty much answers the questions for you. So thanks for tuning in, and
we've had a big week this week, AJ. We got since our last show, we've had vaccine mandates being put in place. We've seen all kinds of new events going on. There's stuff going on still in Afghanistan, right? We have a election now going on in California today, or I'm sorry, when this airs, it'll be yesterday, and it's a recall election. There's all kinds of stuff that's out there. We have a lot of stuff in the news cycle. It's amazing, isn't it?
The sad part is, unless I missed something, there's nothing really good about any of it. I'm going to just, let's go back to just last episode of the show where we touched on, and, folks, if you didn't see it, tune in and watch it to bring you up to snuff. But, we talked about how, there's different, our country right now, there's a lot of ugly things going on right in front of your own eyes. And we outline the different things. And when you really follow the arrow, it is what it is. It points to China. And, again, if you want to get the details on that show and how we broke that all down, go back and watch that episode. But, and just when we thought all this thing with the fentanyl and the coronavirus and all these little gifts that China keeps sending us that's really busting us up from the inside, you thought that was enough, and then we start seeing this, as you touched on, Jim, in Afghanistan, where all of a sudden China and the Taliban, it appears, are starting to become buddies. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know, but that hasn't happened in 2,000 years, maybe. I'm not a history buff. That might be a question for John. But let's just say in the past couple hundred years, Jim, are they ever buddies?
No, in fact, there's a big reason for them not to be buddies. You have the whole concentration camps of the Uyghurs, the Muslims who are living in the province right next door to Afghanistan, and you have a major conflict going on there between the people who live there. The Chinese have really run the Muslims into the ground, and they should be at loggerheads, and they are actually at loggerheads in some many ways, and this is an invitation for them to make peace and become buddy, as the phrase may go.
And that's the alarming part. All of a sudden, after all that, China and the Taliban are going to be buddy-buddy? To me, I mean, again, folks, use your common sense here. We'll get into that in a second, but China just doesn't do anything to benefit or help us. That's for sure, and we showed that in the last show.
There are
what I see, it just seems like an appetite for another disaster where, these extremists and stuff like that now, China starts weaseling in and, feeding the top half of that, whining and dining them, and God only knows what they'll give them. And next thing you know, these terrorist things start happening around the globe or here in the homeland. And, China just sit back and is laughing at it. They're poisoning us. This virus, look, again, last week we said, we're not a conspiracy show here, so you can have your beliefs whether the virus was let out on purpose, whether it wasn't. It's pretty much indisputed that it came from China. So it was a nice gift wrap box of shit that destroyed us and made a mess. So now that these two are buddies, I don't even want to begin to think, with the abandonment of the Bagram Air Base, I know there's been some chatter on the news. I'll say we haven't really been able to verify, if there's validity to that or not. But I think if you go into common sense, China's, watering at the mouth to get over there and set up some kind of compound.
Well, AJ, they have 93. The Afghanis have, the Taliban have $93 billion of American equipment. They have in the country of Afghanistan itself, they have vast resources, natural resources, the heavy metals that they need to make computer chips and a lot of the other gear that run a advanced technological society. All that natural resources is buried in Afghanistan, and they can get to it now because the U.S. is out of the way. That's and so we can talk all day about the friendship that they're developing, but that friendship is an evil that's going to be a knife in the side of Western civilization. We should make it clear that China isn't just against the United States. China is against the world. There's a reason why they think that everything in the world is meant to be Chinese. That's their belief system. They've been very vocal about it. It's what they believe. Everything under the heavens is Chinese, and it's just a matter of time until they make it Chinese. You follow?
Yeah.
Like it's like the communist revolution. Everything's going to be communist because we're going to have a wave of communism. It's the same model for everything being Chinese, including the moon and Mars, folks.
Yeah, and again, it's going back into common sense. If you just look, what has China actually done to ever help us? Ever? Granted, a lot of our, the dingbats that were running this country, it's a simple thing in business and just common sense. Again, I hate to use that word over and over again, but when you begin to import more than you're exporting as a country, you're in trouble. And there's no reason why the United States, we are a big roadblock in China's quest to rule the world. Let's face it. But for gosh sake, we were a country at one point where we were exporting goods from all over the place. Everything was made here, and
exactly.
Aside from foreign, dependent on foreign countries, let alone countries that hate us for our everyday needs, more and more things started to be. Look, folks. I always like to do this once or twice in a show. Don't tell me you never, you buy something and all of a sudden it breaks, and somebody in your household over the years has said, probably made in China. No, it is. And they make cheap quality stuff, but Americans buy it. I'm not knocking any of these dollar stores or anything like that. They have their purpose. Look, you can do a whole birthday party for $5, but you realize there are dollars and dollars and dollars that are going in there, and dollars and dollars. And for some reason, people go into a dollar store and they'll just buy stupid stuff. Do you ever notice that, Jim? Sometimes because it's just $1 they buy.
I've done it, AJ. I've done it.
All right, I bought the can opener one time. I only opened 2 cans and it broke, but I thought it was a good deal.
And
but
you should have used your John Wayne can opener.
Yes,
that thing will open anything.
Precisely. But you think about it. all those dollars, where do you think that stuff comes from? And, there used to be an importer friend of mine one time, and he was telling me when you buy direct, just simply buy direct from China to get a deal, you got to buy pallets of stuff. It's not, you could do internet stuff now, e-commerce things, but, when it comes to these stores, there's, my understanding is there's places in New York, man, where it's just gigantic. And it's all these little rinky-dink things. We're not even talking about the knockoff Louis Vuitton and Gucci stuff. We're just talking about everyday household items where it's just cheaply made. But again, it's like, it's the old saying, Jim, if I offered you, what would you take the deal? $100 one time or $5 100 times? Tell me.
You said that too fast. I didn't catch it.
Everybody, I'm going to make a deal. You want $100 one time or $5 100 times?
Isn't it the same thing?
No. $100 one time is $100. $5 100 times is $500.
I thought you said $500. That's my.
But I think you guys get the point. What I'm saying is like all those dollars, are and it's not just the dollar stores. It's almost every retail store now. Every piece of clothing we wear. There was a documentary not too long ago where they took a house and they showed, and it was basically take everything out of the house that wasn't made in the United States. And I think it was like a 4-bedroom house, 3 stories, and there was like 2 or 3 things left in the house by the time it was done. And I'm laughing out of disgust or kind of snickering here because all this money is going over there and over there, and if that isn't, it's still not good enough for them. Sure, send the fentanyl over here, and now whatever is what could be in the pipeline here with them buddying up with the Taliban. I just think our common sense is nothing good can come of that. I don't see anything. I hope I'm wrong, but it doesn't pass the smell test really. And I was going to use the term.
How do you stop it?
I was going to use the term earlier, and I said I want to hold off on it. But over the horizon, we kept hearing that a lot. There's congressional hearings. That when asked, the current administration, how do you plan? We took our troops out of there, and and it's a breeding ground for terrorism. Nobody disputes that. How do you plan on keeping that over there and not letting it hit the homeland? And the term keeps using. We have this over the horizon thing. I know there's satellite capabilities and all that kind of stuff, but it just seemed to me that even people on both sides of the aisle in Congress were not too sold on the over the horizon theory that, in other words, it's going to be the same impact of, and believe me, I would be the first to say I don't condone troops being over there, anybody over there in harm's way, but it's the balance of what's going to get the job done to keep these people at bay. And when there was Democrats actually, if anybody got to check out those congressional hearings yesterday, when there was another smoke and mirrors sham there. That guy's a clown. But they were, Democrats were asking him, with these drone strikes, they were really zeroing in on that. Like, first of all, you killed the wrong guy, you idiot. And then the second thing was all those innocent children. And you started to see a little bit of civility across the aisle there. And that was a big concern to them. So, when you use over the horizon, it's basically, I would assume, to the military experts tuning in, depending on satellite imagery and drone strikes and stuff of that, where they were questioning the actual accuracy of it. Now, we do have a president who actually did, put a piece of drone ordnance through the driver's side window of a car from 80,000 feet, and he didn't miss. So I don't know if this administration has bad aim or, again, Jim, we talked about this, off the air, that, the president and his whole entire administration is getting absolutely, the ratings are going to be like a -30 pretty soon. And, the weakness that was being exposed, look at the timing of that drone strike. I think the whole thing was a crock of shit. Everything's gone south. 13 troops die. It was like almost a small version of 9/11 all over again, that we have to retaliate in some way. So, okay, find somewhere to drop a drone strike, and boom, there it goes all over the news. We launched a drone strike, and we thwarted off a terrorist attack. And that made people think, all right, maybe this guy in the White House actually has something hanging between his legs. But it was the wrong target. And again,
wasn't it a U.S. aid worker too, trying to bring water to bottles of water to needy needy people. I mean, I think it was like wasn't just he missed the target, but he hit somebody who was one of the good guys, right? I mean,
There's been a lot of, I'm sorry, there's been a lot of stuff kicked around about, whether it was an aid worker, maybe even there was some things going about that it could even actually been some American citizens in that.
right.
We don't want to, that's what we stand behind, folks, that we're not going to be a conduit of propaganda or nonsense. So, but it definitely they were not a threat. They were not terrorists that got hit, and those children were not terrorists who got hit, and it was another blunder. And what was the reason? We in the show, we questioned way back. He wanted his trophy moment, maybe, that he wanted to hoist the trophy on 9/11. Look, I'm the miracle guy who got our troops out of Afghanistan. And when it went terribly wrong, then they went into oh shit mode, and then they added another layer of oh shit, and then topped it off with oh shit, you killed a bunch of innocent people with a drone strike to make it look like, again, that you had some kind of chutzpah.
Yeah, and cover it up with the news. That's all.
I mean, folks, come on. Like, you gotta. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. You gotta look at this or what's going on and say, this is insanity. This is just nuts.
AJ, I don't know if you heard, if you follow college football, but there's a number of college football teams this last weekend that have been starting and chanting during the game, "F you, Joe Biden," and going really vocal about it. I mean, it is clearly audible what they're saying. And my point being that this started a week before with one game, and now it was up to 4 games. And most recently, apparently, which you haven't probably heard about this, folks, but at the September 11th remembrance, there was protesters there, not against September 11th, but against Joe Biden. And there's actually a picture of him yelling at them, pulling down his mask and directly yelling at them. So, I mean, have you heard about that, AJ?
I did. I actually saw the highlights of it, and it was 1 or 2, and then eventually did see it's. And
the lowly qualified news media, or was it what are we calling them? I like your phraseology you had before.
Well, I'll tell you what it was. That was no Z League football, that's for sure, because that was a huge stadium and it was packed. So there. I mean, I'm going to just guess that thing looked like it held 70,000 people. A lot of people. So it wasn't like a small town little college or a conservative college, or anything. That was big time. Was it?
This was Alabama. I forget the other one.
Yeah.
I know Alabama was at the top of the list. That's not a small school.
No,
number
but
one.
when these things are happening, there's the Marxist movement and stuff like that, and the radicals, they don't like that. The last thing, I mean, that doesn't fit into the indoctrination and all that stuff that's going on. So you better, you guys hold on and brace yourself, because more nonsense will be spewed out to try and swing that back. It's all damage control. I mean, the way, what I find is absolutely lunacy, is the state of our country right now. We talked about that in the first episode. Is people just aren't feeling good. Period. Doesn't matter what party you are, and it's impacted people in a very stressful way, in whether it's their security, meaning just in the homeland, finances. It just seems like I had said in the first show that a couple very thick-skinned people said I'm really bummed out and stuff, and just nothing to look forward to. Well, that may be starting to become contagious now, where you have the taxpayers that are feeling it in the wallet. That's definitely going to get their attention. And then you have the college kids who usually kind of just let it all go and, have a good time and don't really think about it till they start paying taxes. And now it's trickling down to that level. So it's not good, Jim. It's just not what America was meant to be. And, what I'm starting to say, what just really, really drives me crazy with all these problems going on, the virus, Afghanistan, the taxes, the border, and there's so many things that are just really wearing the American people out. And we have the vice president was supposed to months ago go down and fix the southern border. I don't know if I missed something or whatnot, but over there in Vietnam, God only knows where in between. And now she's over there in California campaigning for this loony governor out there who totally, I mean, California is the most bluest area in the United States of America, I think. Maybe them in New York, or I think California's a little bluer.
New Jersey's got a good run on them.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff over there, but apolitical here, folks. I mean,
right.
There's a lot of people up there. They did a recall. That's not easy to do, to get that many signatures to say this guy's a nut. We want him out of here. And all of a sudden, these people who work for us and are supposed to be doing things for us, it's not like everything's cool, everything's kosher. We're not getting robbed every day with taxes and violence and all the crazy stuff and drugs and it just the list. We could talk about a list a mile long. It's not like everything's going, like everything's cool. And they're down there. She goes down first to start campaigning because he sucks. And then all of a sudden, that's not good enough. So they bring the President Obama over there and give a little bit more weight. And then they bring President Biden over there, for what is he, that Newsom over there? He's what, Pelosi's nephew or some relation to Pelosi? I mean, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, no, there's also like, and I don't think we talked about this in the pre-show, but Newsom is one of those governors who, during COVID, when he was restricting the hell out of everybody, not letting them leave their house, this guy was going out to a birthday party at some fancy, $300 plate restaurant for one of his friends, not wearing a mask, not social distancing. He's breaking the rules. And AJ, this guy couldn't even, when it came to getting on the ballot, because he actually, even though he's being recalled, he still has, if he does get recalled, he has to be on the ballot to get reelected, right?
Yeah.
He even screwed that up. And so you're supposed to put, the people of California want to put their trust in a guy, a professional politician he is, who can't even get his paperwork done right to run for the seat that he's getting recalled from.
I think
that's where they're supporting.
I think calling him a professional politician is a compliment. I think he's just a spoiled little tyrant, to be honest with you.
I like that even better.
He just looks like, he'll just literally throw, his couple of his recent appearances look like he wanted to throw himself on the ground and start flailing his arms and legs, having a little temper tantrum because the little rich kid couldn't get his way. Now, folks, everybody saw that, what Jim talked about. I mean, that's been on the news a lot, but let's look at the part here. There's these people, okay, we have a president, a vice president, the former president, okay, he's retired. Or maybe he's not. He could be behind the curtain. That's still up for debate. But regardless, these people are supposed to be serving 300 million people. That's who they work for. The people of this country, all people, whether they voted for him or didn't vote for him. Remember, all politicians, they say, whether you vote for me or not, I'll support you, I'll love you, I'll kiss babies and shake hands, whatever the bullshit is, right. But right now, with the country, I would say, look, I don't want to be over animated here. I was going to say a country in crisis, but a country not doing well. Maybe we are in crisis. It's up to you because you could decide. Every household's different. But I'd be fair to say the majority of households aren't doing too well. And, 300 million people are supposed to serve. And they're going out there to campaign for this little rich tyrant, the relative of Pelosi. I mean, do you see a pattern here? And yes, on the Republican side, you have that little group of sloths too. So
Mitch McConnell definitely on that list. Mitt Romney definitely on that list. We have that guy Ben Sass. He's on that list. I mean, we could go all day on that list. And I would just say this. Maybe to your point, AJ. Maybe the guy who sleeps in the White House should actually spend some time doing his homework, because if he had done his homework, Afghanistan wouldn't have ended as a disaster. We wouldn't have been giving so much to those Chinese, right? Well, I mean, isn't that really, something that he should be focused on instead of this crybabies campaign?
I would really love to see. I would really love to see a poll, a real legitimate poll, or maybe a couple of these polling companies put it
AJ,
together.
You're not gonna see a legitimate poll.
Well, no. What I was actually going to say is, like, okay, well, let's pretend we're in a good world or something. Just a poll with the masses of American people actually think, and maybe there is one out there. I don't know. That in a scale of 1 to 10, how could I word this? On a scale of 1 to 10, as American citizens, your commander-in-chief, 10 meaning he's firing on all cylinders, and 1, the engine's kaputs. Right. Where does he fall on that scale? And I'm curious to see, because anybody watching what's going on, to be in denial that there's not something going on, something fishy, I don't know, man. It might be too much of the alcohol or the booze, or I don't know. But
I'm just going
not
to...
him. I'm saying the people that don't see this. I mean, that something's not right.
I'm going to throw this out there, AJ. For since it became clear that Afghanistan was turning into a CF, getting really, really bad. I've been searching on Twitter and other places for those people that you just described, and I've been finding them. I've been finding them saying, "Mr. President, you're a good man. We support you. You're doing a good job." Everything that you would expect to see from someone who's an insane lunatic at this point. That's what you would see. And when I say insane lunatic, they actually think this guy is doing well, and he's a good man. That's a really good person to lead our country. I have to tell you, AJ, they exist.
And most of them are probably in California right now, $300 plate dinner, trying to campaign for the little tyrant. They're just a loyalist trying to, like you read it. You might have someone still on the fence, and they're trying to say no. It's just like the appearances. When everybody started questioning, he kind of disappears, and then people are questioning, where's our leader? And then, okay, so they realize that, now, folks, you got to follow along with this a little bit, not just here, but you'll see it in plain sight. Okay, put him up, and then get him out there to say, look, here he is. He's doing a little speech,
Right.
But you can't even ask him anymore what flavor ice cream. That's off the chart now. You can't ask him nothing. Now, to go back in time for a second, because this wasn't part of the show, but now that it kind of went there, go back in time.
Yeah.
And in any presidential election, at least in my time, and if you go back and watch some videos of before you and I were even around, it's all about getting out there and campaigning. Now, I know some talk show host and opinion host and that stuff would say he's in the basement and use terms like that, but
right.
He really was not in sight. So whether you call it in the basement or, whatever it was, this whole thing seemed like a smoke and mirror sham. And that's our objective here on the cycle of mayhem is, again, to get rid of the smoke and mirrors and lift up the curtain and find out what the hell's going on. But it started way back then, and I don't see anything to shift. And so anybody that's really putting that out there, they're either an operative, for a cause and don't care about the 300 million people, which is chances are, or they're just off the rails, one of the two. But it is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, it's like sitting there and asking a conservative or a Republican to vote for Mitt Romney. Good luck with that. No. I
just checked the polls. There's nothing in. Polls are still closed, or still open, I should say, in California. So we have no idea how that's all going, by the way.
And, we did see the footage. You have Larry Elder up there running. And kudos to Mr. Elder, where, he just had enough. And his platform. And again, folks, when it comes to picking a leader, you got to put your party aside. You just do, because you're the one going to suffer in the end. And when you get someone like a Larry Elder that comes around who, it means what he says, and he doesn't have that pedigree of being a career politician, tyrant, this guy comes in there and he's got the recipe. He's not going in with vague answers. Here he is in the biggest homeless problem that they have there. These people are addicts. They're in the roughest times of their lives, and he wants to finally do something about it, while certain people live in their gated communities right down the street. and somebody in a mask comes up and eggs him and harasses him,
A gorilla
and
mask.
yeah, and the thing is, probably that piece of crap that was in that gorilla mask doesn't live on the street, that isn't there hurting with those people. So you got to look at it in a different way. That gorilla mask person, whatever it was under there, I don't know what it was. Okay,
They were riding a bike, so I think you're onto something there, AJ. They were
yeah.
riding a bike. I mean,
So
how many
thank
people have
God.
bikes?
Yeah, thank God TV doesn't have smell-o-vision, because she didn't look too kept. But anyway, when that thing came by and did that to him, if that was some type of political hit job or something like that, or it could be a loony, who knows? They're hurting the people that are on the street. Here's the person, the other guy, the tyrant, has had enough time to help the people in that state and not suck every living piece of air out of them and every little thing that they have. And yet all the time, and he failed. He didn't do it. And the people spoke, a lot of them. And now Larry comes in, Larry Elder, with some fresh ideas, and he's ready to go. And you don't hear a blip. And not only that, yes, there was definitely racial issues there to do that. But overall, it's like you got to see what's going on here. In every community, you'll get this person who's living on Easy Street. My grandfather's famous line, may he rest in peace. He said, boy, we don't live on Easy Street, and we never will. And there's a lot of us who don't. But these who do, these are some of the biggest mouths, like you said, wine and dine, $300 a plate. In some cases, they have no clue what it's like to eat that cheese that comes in a box. You could be very creative with that cheese. My mom did wonders with that, and have no idea what it's like to struggle. And powdered milk, too. We can go on for hours with that, making different types of menu items, but no idea what it's like to struggle. But they put this show on like, oh, we care for you and we love you and we really sympathize for you. Folks, they don't give two shits about you.
Nope.
They don't. And if you believe that they do, you're just falling into insanity. And again, you really need to start thinking about who you vote for. And number one is get out there and vote, and don't think, it's not worth it. The election's rigged. And, look, regardless of what the outcome of that election was there questionable things? Absolutely. But you can't think like that, because I don't know how much worse things could get, but if they do, you got to get people in there. And even if it's just on your local community, so maybe on a federal level, it's a disaster, but at least locally where you live, there's some decency there.
Yep. Now, the thing to keep in mind is there's been so much concern. This is another. Consider this election in California a test. We have, on the election system, we have another test in November with New Jersey and Virginia for the governor's races. And in fact, New Jersey is the entire state. All the legislative seats are up. So there's a big opportunity for us to have a test with that. And all three of these are blue states. We can take a measure from them and go from there. But there's a big, strong movement around the entire country to fix the election and get these problems that we had out of the way. And it comes all back to I was listening in, and there was this big. They had Justice Breyer on Fox News this Sunday. I don't know if you saw, and he's talking. He is such in the tank as a leftist. He really is. He's not a constitutionalist. He doesn't believe in the Constitution, but he's sitting there talking about that there was really no reason to bring in the Texas case against Pennsylvania. And you know Pennsylvania's case, that the courts changed the laws, and that's supposed to be just the legislature is supposed to do it. It's clearly a constitutional issue. It was a constitutional issue in Florida in 2000. It's a constitutional issue today, but they backed off on it because they were afraid. And I think that they don't have the willpower to do the right thing. But there's a number of American citizens out there who do, and we're going to be watching. We're going to make sure that the polls the ballots aren't a cheat. So I think that's good. I think we're at a stage. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Go out there, push that vote, and be aware. I mean, I did hear reports of people in California who are showing up to vote and being told you already voted.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, like I said, there's actually we're better off going back or doing like Afghan. I believe it's Afghanistan, maybe Pakistan. There's some one in the Middle Eastern country
with the finger, right?
Yeah, purple dye on your thumb. One vote, one person. I mean, they're in the Stone Age, and their votes, their election is at least more organized than ours. I mean, we're definitely going backwards. And in one of the prior shows, we did talk about that. You know how there's this movement to keep the 55 and older community in the dark, make things more comfortable. For Christ's sakes, there's people 35 years old that are confused on how to vote. In one of the local towns, it was just released that the ballots come out normally. Well, first of all, the paper ballot thing. I mean, maybe in some states they have it, but a lot of states it was a touch screen type of thing or some type of kiosk that you worked off of. And, it was Republicans on one side, Democrats on the other side. And the ballots that are being printed out now, it has all Democrat on the top. And it's just whether you're Republican or Democrat, especially all the Democrats now that there's so many independents and Democrats that are, they sway back and forth, just like some the conservatives do. That we talk about the middle left, middle right group of people who really are the meat and potatoes of the country. They're not happy with that. They're not happy and they're not stupid when they do get the right information because they see that and say, well, why do you have to cheat? Why would you have to do that? That's not really fair. Or, should a candidate be placed on there based on who had the most votes in the primary or alphabetically? But you just don't simply stack the deck and put the Republicans on the top or the Democrats on the top. Folks, if you see that on your ballot, if you see that, it should be a red flag right off that the people at the top are probably trying to pull smoke and mirrors over you. Vote the opposite way because something's not going.
I got to correct myself because it's not just there that there's elections, right? Because we have a lot of local elections too. We have school board elections coming up in November. We have, mayoral races, township councils. There's a number of races that are out there. I mean, just because it's not a presidential or a congressional one, it's still a big deal. And it's a great check where, like you were just saying, not only do that, but if you see your small little town has 300 voters and all of a sudden they have 500 votes, whoa, red flag again.
Yeah, 110%. 110% of the people voted. But, you touched on something, and folks, just like Jim said, it's huge to remember that. This upcoming election, the bright side of it is every other commercial is not going to be a political ad. But the scary part about it is this is where the dirty deed gets done. Is nobody's paying attention. We talked last week about the billions of dollars spent in that last presidential campaign, probably the most polarized. I've talked to seniors, some of them 80 years old, just to kind of fact check and say, did you ever in your life see an election that, and they all unanimously were, no, never. So maybe 10 years from now, there could be something even more polarized. But the point is, for this upcoming election, you have to have, this is so important, especially for your local communities, because this is where the serpents sneak in. Nobody's paying attention. They go out there and they get just enough of the little loonies to get them in. And then 2 years it usually takes for all the damage to start really kicking in, and your taxes are going through the roof. You got a school board that's totally off the rails. And, then all of a sudden, now you're even feeling more sick. It's bad enough your federal side, that level makes you feel sick. Now your local government, your little hometown as you knew it, has been taken over because people weren't paying attention, and they did it to you in plain sight. So with this local election coming up, and we said it last week, I'm going to say it again. Because of these new mail-in ballots and all this new election stuff, you can't look at it and say November 2nd is the election. If you're in a little town or anywhere and you have that candidate you like and you get a little group of grassroots people to support that candidate, you have to remember something. You need to start campaigning right now because those mail-in ballots are going to be going in the mail probably within the next week and a half. So if you wait till November 2nd thinking, that's game day, you could be wrong. And the other thing, and on the conservative side, a lot of conservatives don't want to hear nothing about this, but it's something that they should listen to, is nobody that I saw as a conservative is telling you register for mail-in, register for mail-in. But if you know you're going to be away, you're going to be out of town, and you don't qualify for an absentee ballot, you need to get that mail-in ballot and mail it in, because that's how the conservatives are getting their tuchuses hit in a lot of communities, because the leftists are turning around and they're just stacking the deck, and maybe a lot of dead people are still voting. I don't want to, I don't even want to talk about that, because we got to talk about the future, and it's simply you have to vote. So if you have that little grassroots candidate, could be a mayor, Jersey, they got the governors, and regardless of what it is, you got to make sure you get out there and vote. And if you're even a little thinking like, you know what, I'm free that day, I can go after work. But if you're one of those people that you worked a long, hard day and you're going to go home and take a nap after you have dinner, you're not going to get up at 7:30 and run down to the polls. In some areas, they might even be closed. So if you have any doubt, you have to get that mail-in ballot or whatever it is to make sure you vote. And remember, it's not November 2nd is the official day of election, but those ballots start coming out within weeks, and they're going to be on doorsteps. So if you're campaigning for a good candidate, and hopefully you are, you have to make sure your message, you should be pounding the pavement right now and making sure that people in your neighborhoods know, because if you are doing a grassroots campaign, chances are you don't have 7 digits sitting in the bank to buy literature and ads and commercials and outreach. So these elections are the ones, it really comes down to this. And these type of elections, with maybe the exception of the governor race, Jim, but the mayors, the school boards is huge, local council people, commissioners. The people who win them are the team that hits the most doors.
Yep.
That's it. You could say what you want, but whoever outworks their opposition and hits the most doors, and if you have people in the neighborhood that have been there 30, 40 years, and you can get them on your team that know people in the neighborhood, and there's going to be people that go, I'm a Trump guy, yeah, or that goddamn Trump, you got to get that smoke out of the way and bring them in real quick and say, look, whether you love Trump, hate Trump, love Biden, hate Biden, this is about our local community here. And if you have a local community where you just got that tax bill and you were sticker shock and needed your heart pill, you got to do something about it. So that's what you need to engage your locals on having people that are going to go in and really stop that. Because if you have any doubt about the candidate, you got to sometimes pick the lesser of two evils, Jim, I think. We had that with Obama and Romney. Boy, that was like, they had to have a vomit bag from like a plane in the booth, because it was just, talk about low energy. It was like, I thought that was, I'll never forget that election. Just like you never forget the last election. I never forgot that one. I looked and I said, you got to be kidding, 2 pompous asses. I mean, I was going to put a question mark, but they wouldn't let you back then because you had to push a button.
Yeah, it's a question of who was more arrogant. Right?
Yeah, just sloppy. I mean, just 2 dopes. I mean, that's really what it came down to. And you see, folks, where those type of candidates get us, absolutely nowhere. Nowhere. And I hate to bring it up again, but this thing that's going on in California right now, all the people who are supposed to be working for us just drop what they're doing and go out there to campaign for the tyrant. Jim, is that the official name now, the tyrant? We're going to go with that?
Sure, we'll go with that. Yeah, why not?
All right, the tyrant.
Works for me.
The tyrant.
So, AJ, we're at 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I know that was our cutoff. Do you want to wrap it up for the people out there?
Yeah, folks, I mean, thank you so much for tuning in. And like I said, every Wednesday we're going to have some good stuff for you. And I think by now you know what our objective is to get rid of the smoke and mirrors, pull back the cover, and show you the things that are in plain sight, to at least have some type of outlet where we're going to bring you some information and stuff to help you make a better decision on who you want to vote for, and have a little bit more trust. And then maybe we can lead you to something, and then you take it even farther on your own to dig into something to make that decision. But the big thing, too, we always like to touch on is, we don't do this show for to be some YouTubers or, big social media buffs. We do it as patriotic citizens trying to do our part. But the important thing is, if you could, is spread the word, not really for us, but for everyone. So if you share, you like, and could do that, the more people that hear the message, the more, that we could share and hopefully start getting this country going back in the right direction. Don't forget, every Sunday night, the Brotherhood of Liberty, is another awesome show that's done here on Ballistic Patriot. But, that's it for me, and God bless. And like I always say, as tough as it is and as frustrating it is, try and find a way to be kind. Don't let them get your goat. Try to be kind to someone.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, God bless. We'll see you next time.
Quiet, numbskull. I'm broadcasting.